should have a full audit of the Federal Reserve and get back to a sound currency as the Constitution mandates, a gold standard.
That, of course, presidential candidate Ron Paul telling us that it is time to return to the gold standard. Until 71, gold was the base for the U.S. dollar. But 40 years later, could gold, or could the concept of gold, we'll get into that, act as a counter to Fed money printing, a way to inhibit the insane capacity that our government has to manufacture literally 10, 20, 30 trillion dollars at a time whenever it's needed to bail out whoever is politically relevant in funding the politicians at the time. That the gold standard, either literally or conceptually, provides a mechanism to prevent that. Matt Bishop is the New York bureau chief for The Economist magazine. He is also their business editor, and he has just published an e-book, which is quite the thing these days. In Gold We Trust, excuse me, is the title of the book. So you're dealing with an age-old concept. You're delivering the information in a very modern and cutting-edge way with your e-book. What are you hoping I will understand, or we will understand, or our audience will understand after we understand what you wrote?
Yeah, and the reason my co-author and I wrote In Gold We Trust was that we felt that this quadrupling of the price of gold in the last 10 years raised some really big questions. Why did it go up so much? And we found that a lot of people who we talked to basically attributed it to a bunch of crazies like Glenn Beck and whoever follows his God, gun and gold strategy. But in fact, the reality is that with some of the smartest investors that I spoke to, people
like John Paulson, who got famous for his housing call.
Yeah, the people who called the downturn right, people like Ray Dalio as well, they are big into gold because they see that there's a big crisis coming up with our paper money, that just like paper books are being destroyed by e-books, so paper money is going to be destroyed by quantitative easing, and they think gold is a good alternative. And so I think it has to be seen as a sort of canary, we call it a canary in a gold mine, that basically is warning us to take very seriously the risk to our money, and that if you're a saver, you don't want to be exposed, you don't want to be putting all your savings in dollars, particularly if you're getting a fixed rate of dollars in the future, because the chances are that our politicians are going to take the way of printing money rather than actually raising taxes or cutting spending, and that will ruin your savings. Or adopting
21st century network problem solving.
Right.
Which is definitely not going to happen.
Right.
Other thoughts here?
My question is, when I was growing up, I was always told gold was a hedge. That's what my father told me growing up in the 70s and the 80s, and that was the way it is. And I'm just wondering, is it still considered a hedge, or is it something that's worth investing in now?
Well, I think, a lot of people, even the Warren Buffetts of the world, are very dismissive of gold and say it's just impossible to tell how it's going to perform. But I think there's a pretty strong historic track record going back hundreds and hundreds of years that it is a very good hedge in certain periods, particularly when you have high inflation or a real sense of concern about the political system and whether it's going to take the right decisions economically. So I think it is still a hedge.
We were in the middle of a conversation with Matt Bishop from The Economist. He's their New York bureau chief and business editor, publisher of a new book entitled In Gold We Trust. Really, it feels like you're saying we need to respect what's going on with the price of gold because it is telling you that the smartest financial minds are not confident in paper currency.
Yeah, I think that's the first lesson you need to take from gold. And, I think when you hear people like Warren Buffett say just ignore gold altogether, I think you shouldn't listen to Buffett on that one because it does seem to me there's something real going on.
But this is not an investment conversation, should I or shouldn't I buy gold? This is a conversation saying, how am I to interpret the explosive movement in gold prices, and what is that telling me about the perception of the world that I live in?
Yeah, and I think what it tells you is these smart investors are extremely worried about the people who are in charge of our economy, and particularly the tendency to print money. And they think that there's two things going on. One is quantitative easing, which everyone knows is just a complete leap in the dark. We don't know whether it's going to work or not, and we don't know how it's going to end. And history says every time you have a period of printing money like this, it does end in inflation, which is when gold tends to do very well. But I think the second bet is the more interesting one, and it plays into a lot of things you've said, Dylan, in terms of the way the political system is just so dysfunctional now that politicians aren't going to take any of the hard decisions that need to be taken.
So the high price of gold is a long position on screwed up American politics.
Basically, yeah.
made for me.
So,
no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So what do we the little people do about? So you say we don't invest in gold.
Well, it's not. I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think there's rather than just holding lots of putting your money into accounts that pay you a fixed rate of dollars, you want to look at assets that are going to perform in situations where you get inflation, for example. So I think some gold in a portfolio does make sense. But there's also these very interesting things going on in Silicon Valley where people are trying to design alternative money systems that are programmed to retain their value over time in terms of the kind of goods and services you can buy. So there's something called Bitcoin that's been developed, and it's a first shot at it. But I think there's going to be other experiments like that that are designed to try and protect us against the risk that governments are going to inflate their way out of the debt crisis that we've got at the moment.
So in 71, coming off of Johnson into Nixon, obviously we were in a war that was unending. We had massive amounts of debt. They ended our tie to gold, the dollar to gold, right? And then we had, as you just said, a remarkable period of inflation. And then a high period of inflation, and an extended period of inflation went all the way to Carter. Let's say we tie it back to gold. Gold is a commodity. So are pig bellies, so is anything. So is the weather. You can commoditize anything. Gold has a nice price right now. Sometimes it doesn't. Pig bellies at one time were the main thing traded in the Chicago exchanges. Today, not so much. So my question is gold is just a commodity like a cup or anything else. Why should we tie any kind of monetary value to something that is a commodity that goes up and down and up and down and up and down? Wouldn't that wreak havoc?
Well, I think I would be very strongly against going to a gold standard because I think history, as we write about in Gold We Trust, history shows that every time you have a period of a gold standard, after a while, that actually creates problems as well. You don't have enough money to go around sometimes. First Great Depression in America at the end of the 19th century was due to the gold standard. Right. But gold is different in the sense from pork bellies because it is a fixed supply and it doesn't really have a lot of other uses. The use of gold for jewellery and things is a pretty small amount of the total gold stock. So I think it is different.
All right, listen, for me, I used to joke when I was on Fast Money, and I would say, if you're long gold, you're short America. And that basically, the better gold does, that is your negative sentiment indicator to the basic functioning of our government, functioning of our currency, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that it's a warning that's worth taking heed.
Yeah, we should take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, you should not dismiss it. Anyway, and Gold We Trust is the ebook. Check it out. Matt Bishop is the author, and you can catch his work and his curation as U.S. business editor at The Economist. A rather fabulous publication, I must say.
Thank you.